Welcome back. You're watching Center Stage. 2 incursion attempts in 3 days. China seems to be back to its dirty old tricks. Chinese troops have reportedly made incursions in Demchok and Chumar areas of Ladakh. But these blatant violations don't seem to be a big deal for Home Minister Rajnath Singh. He says that incursions on both sides are common. This statement from the Home Minister needs to be seen in the context of the aggressive pre-poll comments made by senior BJP leaders who wanted Prime Minister Manmohan Singh to adopt an aggressive stance against China. Now, when in government, they seem to be doing completely the opposite.
Yet another handshake, yet another betrayal. Soon after Prime Minister Narendra Modi met the Chinese president in Brazil and emphasized the need to resolve border issues, Chinese army made 2 incursion attempts. 2 violations in 3 days in Demchok and Chumar areas of Ladakh sector in Jammu and Kashmir. The incursion in Demchok sector occurred on Tuesday when PLA personnel entered the area in their vehicles in the wee hours, claiming it to be Chinese territory. The incursion in Chumar happened on 13 July when members of the PLA ventured several hundred meters near Petrol Point 2. The men were on horseback and were confronted by the Indian Army and ITBP patrol parties. But these blatant violations don't seem to be a big deal for the Home Minister Rajnath Singh. He said infiltration attempts are made from both sides and that no talks can stop them.
यह घुसपैठ का सिलसिला जो बराबर चलता रहता है, निरंतर चलता रहता है। उधर के सेना के जवानों का भारत में प्रवेश करना, कभी-कभी भारत के लोग भी जाने की कोशिश करते हैं। हो सकता है कि क्योंकि सही डिमार्केशन न होने के कारण कभी ये प्रॉब्लम आई है।
Rajnath Singh's comment triggered massive uproar, with the Congress accusing the Modi government of going soft on China.
चुनाव भाषण में सारे भाजपा के नेता मोदी साहब खुद कह रहे थे कि चीन से सारी जमीन वापस ले लेंगे, 6 महीने के अंदर चीन से जमीन वापस ले लेंगे। अब क्या हो रहा है भैया, बताओ देश को।
After the political storm over his comment, the Home Minister issued a clarification, saying what he meant was that sometimes the Chinese forces enter Indian territory and the Indian security forces push them back.
होम मिनिस्टर ने कहा, ठीक ही कहा है, क्योंकि अब डिमार्केशन वगैरह का जो प्रोसेस है वो अब ठीक तरह से होगा, जो पिछले कई सालों से होना जरूरी था। अब एनडीए के गवर्नमेंट के आने के बाद मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में इन बातों को बहुत अच्छी तरह से आप देखेंगे कि डिमार्केशन होगा।
In the run-up to the elections, the BJP promised to tame the Chinese dragon. Has that promise been forgotten? Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
There was immense poll rhetoric led by the fiery Prime Ministerial candidate Narendra Modi. The BJP urged the UPA to take China head-on. Suddenly, within weeks of coming to power, the rhetoric seems to have gone. Today, the Home Minister scored a self-goal when he said, at certain times, our army goes and intrudes into Chinese territory. On other occasions, the Chinese army comes into Indian territory. Has the BJP government suddenly gone soft on China? And in the context of the government going soft, was all the polled rhetoric sheer political hypocrisy? Joining us on the center stage face-off tonight, representing the Bharatiya Janata Party senior leader Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, and representing the Congress Party former INB Minister Manish Tiwari. And before I come to you, Dr. Swamy, I want to read to you what Murli Manohar Joshi said. And this comment came just days before the elections got over. And this is after an incursion from China. Your senior leader says the Chinese incursion is totally wrong. This is condemnable. The government is weak. Conditions are critical. We demand the resignation of the Prime Minister. Senior BJP leaders went to the extent of demanding the resignation of Dr. Manmohan Singh because of a Chinese incursion. And today, your Home Minister, sir, suggests that the Indian army goes and intrudes into China. Sometimes the Chinese army comes into us. Is this not highly hypocritical, Dr. Swamy?
Well, I don't know whether it's highly hypocritical. I think it's the reality that we do cross across sometimes. They cross across here, and we have an agreement that we won't fire on each other when that happens. The only seriousness will arise if the Chinese cross and then stay there. If they park on our territory, then I think we'll have to take action. But if they come and then they go, I think that's been my position throughout. It's not. I don't know what Murli Manohar Joshi might have said and how it was quoted, how it's transcribed, but the fact is that we are in a situation where making good relations with China is a national objective.
Which is exactly what the UPA was trying to do. To say that you cannot escalate and take to such a crescendo every escalation or every intrusion from the Chinese side. Has Manish Tiwari, the BJP, suddenly gone soft, or have they realized how difficult it is to be in power? How do you see this change in position? Because make no mistake, there is a huge and apparent change in the BJP's position suddenly, Manish.
Well, according to
Rahul,
Mr.
the issue is far more serious.
Dr. Swami, let Manish make his opening contention. I'm coming back to you in just a second. Manish.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Rahul, what I was trying to submit was that the situation is far more serious than what it is made out to be. While a delegation led by the Vice President of India was in China to commemorate the 60th anniversary of Panchsheel, which essentially means peaceful coexistence, you had the Hunan Map Press and the Hubei Bureau of Survey issuing a map which showed Arunachal Pradesh, Sky Chin, parts of the Karakoram Tract, all as an integral part of China. And you did not even get a whisper out of this government. During the same time, concurrently, there were two violations, both on land as well as of the airspace in eastern Ladakh. And if you juxtapose this and the current violations with the BJP's rhetoric over the past 10 years, whenever there was an intrusion into Indian territory, it not only smacks of hypocrisy, but for the lack of a better word, represents a complete U-turn. It is in fact another manifestation of the difference between their rhetoric, between their polemics, and what they are really practicing now that they're in government.
You're bang on, Manish, because when the Chinese put out maps, the Hunan Map Press and the Hubei Bureau of Surveying Maps and Geoinformation puts out maps that show Arunachal Pradesh, Aksai Chin and parts of the Karakoram tracts as integral part of China, we hear not a whisper, Dr. Swami, from the new BJP government. If this had happened under Manish's watch and under the watch of Dr. Manmohan Singh, the BJP would have gone to town crying blue murder. Is this not a complete U-turn on the BJP's position, Dr. Swami, on China?
Well, first, let me tell you about the UPA. According to Sanjay Baru, Manmohan Singh listened to only two people on China. One of them was me. So if you are saying that we are saying that I am saying exactly what UPA used to say, there's no surprise. Now, as far as the maps are concerned, we also show our maps where we have shown exactly what is our position. In fact, our position is the correct position. The Chinese have no claims at all, and I can prove it in any discussion. The situation in the border has been created because of the foolishness of Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru. When he had bargaining chips like Tibet, he just gave it all away without bargaining, even though Sardar Patel had warned him. Today we are trying to retrieve a situation, and I wish Arun Jaitley had allowed the publication of that Henderson report. We would have known exactly what the Congress party government did.
He's your finance minister, and when he was leader of the opposition, he was demanding that the Henderson Brooks report be made public, very conveniently changing his stance. And all of this taken together, Dr. Swami, no, one second, you can't wish this away, because taken together, the position on Henderson Brooks, the position on Pakistan, the position on China shows the BJP is simply not consistent. You say one thing when you're in opposition, completely the opposite when you're in power.
I don't think that's quite correct, because you can see our manifesto, you can see the considered resolutions, none of them we have spoken like this. When individual members, however senior they are in whatever high positions they have, they express an opinion, we don't know how it gets translated in the media.
So let me quote, one second, these are not individual members. Let me quote to you what Mohan Bhagwat, the RSS Sarsanchalak says. No, Dr. Swami, here is the RSS chief, the fountainhead of BJP's ideology, saying Dark clouds are hovering on our national
Yes.
security as China continues to test our mettle and patience by carrying out frequent incursions across our borders.
Yes.
Besides dumping its products in our country, China and Pakistan repeatedly intrude into Indian
Yes.
territory with the latest attack. Now the question is, now if this is what Mohan Bhagwat feels, and I can pull out reactions also from Prime Minister Modi before he became Prime Minister, it was a completely different, very strong 56-inch chest approach. Now suddenly that 56-inch chest seems to have disappeared. The approach seems to have changed. It's almost as if
Listen,
there's Manmohan Singh saying pretty much the same things you were saying earlier.
All right, you have said it. Now, as far as Mohan Bhagwat's stand is correct, it's in fact the parameters which I accept. The Chinese can't provoke us. The dark clouds were there at one stage.
They still are. Two incursions in 3 days.
Now,
Very aggressive maps put out when the Indian Vice President is in China. Those dark clouds still hover on our horizon, sir.
I don't have to accept Rahul Kanwal's version of what our China policy should be. I'm a man who is clued in on this thing.
I'm not imposing my China policy. I'm only reminding you about what senior leaders in the BJP and Sangh have said. Manish Tiwari, do you find what Dr. Swami is saying in the least bit convincing? Are you in the least bit convinced by the BJP's latest position?
Yeah, it can't be convincing for him. He's a congressman.
May I come in, Rahul?
He's a congressman.
Rahul,
How can it be convincing
Rahul,
for
it
him?
does not only end here. Earlier in the June of 2014, the Sino-Maps Press of China issued another map which showed almost the entire South China Sea as the inland waters of China. Now, if you believe in your Far East policy, if you believe in the concept of Indo-Pacific, and you feel that you have strategic interest in the South China Sea, you've been trying to explore oil off the coast of Vietnam, you would be concerned. But again, there was not a whisper out of this government. So therefore, their entire argument on cartographic aggression, on intrusions, their silence on the whole of South China Sea being declared by China almost as their inland waters, as if it is a lake of China, is, deafening in its ominousity. So therefore, not only is it a complete U-turn, I would characterize it as a very dangerous compromise with India's national security.
Dr. Swami must respond.
Well, yes, I will respond. I'm happy that he shifted ground to South China Sea. Now, first I got to see that we ourselves are very clear what our map is. The confusion arose because of Jawaharlal Nehru, and today we need to be very clear. I didn't say that these were disputed borders. It was Mr. Rajiv Gandhi who in 1988 told Deng Xiaoping that yes, we accept that the border is disputed. Once it's disputed, then they can publish any maps. We'll publish our maps. When we sit down to finalize it, that time we will decide where our national interest lies.
No, but
At the moment,
do you
I can
accept,
say
Dr.
very clearly
Swami,
China has no claim.
As usual, the comment made by Home Minister Rajnath Singh, and for the benefit of our viewers, I want to put it out just once more. Home Minister Rajnath Singh saying, sometimes the Chinese army intrudes into Indian soil, sometimes the Indian army goes on the other side. Listen to our Home Minister.
मैं समझता हूं कि आज चाइना के प्रीमियर से उनकी बातचीत हुई है, तो यह घुसपैठ का सिलसिला जो बराबर चलता रहता है, निरंतर चलता रहता है। उधर के सेना के जवानों का भारत में प्रवेश करना, कभी-कभी भारत के लोग भी जाने की कोशिश करते हैं। हो सकता है कि क्योंकि सही डिमार्केशन न होने के कारण कभी ये प्राप्त।
Now, Dr. Swami, if somebody in the UPA had said this, the BJP would have been very angry, demanding the resignation of that minister. Is this not a clear self-goal scored by our Home Minister?
It's not, and I don't know whether the UPA minister would have said it and what our reactions would have been. I'm telling you this, that we will take it very seriously if they came across our border, which we consider as our border, and sit down. Then of course it will be a matter for which we will have to retaliate. And this, in the case of the Aksai Chin, what the statement made to the Home Minister is approximately correct. This is what the army commanders also tell me when I talk
Manish
to
Tiwari,
them.
do you accept this explanation by Dr. Swami that the Home Minister is only stating the obvious? Speak to any officer, he might not say so on camera, but the reality along the line of actual control is sometimes they intrude, sometimes we intrude. This is the reality. He's stating the obvious. Do you accept this, or do you think this is a self-call? Manish.
Let me shift gears back from the South China Sea to the Sino-Indian border. And Rahul, you would recall that whenever there was an intrusion from the Chinese side, or there was a question of stapled visas, or even if there was any other provocation in the form of an article, published in any of the Chinese papers, the BJP used to go ballistic. They used to go red, blue and purple in the face. And now the same BJP government is not only treating these intrusions with kids' gloves, but trying to justify it by saying that it is the obvious, there is a line of control, there is a perception line. If they come till their perception line, what's so wrong with it? Then where is the sanctity of the line of control?
Absolutely, and Dr. Swami, you are smiling through what Manish is saying.
When there were violations along the line of control.
If this had happened under the UPA's watch, you would not have been smiling. You would have been hitting out hard against Manish Tiwari and the Congress government. Why can't we expect the BJP to take the same position in government as it did in opposition, sir? Where has all the toughness gone all of a sudden?
We are taking the same position. We are taking the same position. We are saying that if the Chinese cross and then they sit down, we will retaliate. That's our position. That is, if they cross without knowing and go back, after we bring it to their notice,
why are you accepting that they are crossing without knowing? Suddenly you are conceding that they are crossing without knowing. Why give them that concession?
Let me tell you what Rajnath Singh is absolutely correct. I myself have been independently told that sometimes we also cross. And then they
this is what the Congress was saying when they were in government and you were not prepared to accept it. I'm sorry. That will not fly because this is exactly what senior Congress ministers said. And at that time you were not prepared to accept it at all. But Manish, here is the case that Dr. Swami draws. He is making a difference in approach. He says, Manish Tiwari, Dr. Subramaniam Swami says there is a difference between what's happening now. These two incursions in 3 days saw the Chinese retreat immediately. The maximum they stayed was for 2 hours on a speedboat, on a high-speed boat, when they intruded around the Pangong Lake. However, under the watch of the UPA, they stayed for many weeks. He says if the Chinese come and pitch a tent, then we will retaliate. We will not accept that. Do you accept that explanation, Manish?
Rahul, may I respectfully point out that this argument is self-defeating. After all, what is the definition of a violation? The definition of a violation is if the People's Liberation Army comes across the line of actual control as it stands delineated on the map today. So therefore, if they are not willing to accept the sanctity of the McMahon line and they believe that it is some kind of an imperial sophistry, they are in fact totally validating the Chinese position. I mean, I'm surprised that this is exactly what the Chinese argue, which the BJP is arguing today.
Mr. Manish Tiwari, you just now said crossing the McMahon line. No crossing across the McMahon line has taken place. So don't get confused. You are talking about the Aksai Chin line of actual control. That is on the map, definitely. But it has not been delineated on the ground. That is what you have been so long in power, you have not done it. And what you have actually done in Aksai Chin earlier, I don't think that the government of India, out of deference to the concept of a continuing government, has wanted to make it public. I think it's wrong. They should have pointed out, they should have released the Henderson book reports. I don't think that it was right on our part not to release it. But the fact is that
well, you can still go ahead and release the Henderson book report. You should release the Henderson book report. If that is the bee in the bonnet, please go ahead and release the Henderson books report. Let the facts come out in the public.
One at a time, please. One at a time.
This country has the maturity to face its past squarely, Mr. Swami. And let me also point out that the line of actual control, the sanctity of that line of actual control is recognized by both the Chinese and the Indians in terms of the joint working group on the border.
No, but
absolutely.
So therefore, if there is a violation along the line of actual control, you just cannot classify it as a non-event.
No, but
do you congressmen ever know how to stop talking? You just all have accelerators in your voice, no brakes.
Well, Mr. Swami, that's what we learned from you. I told you yesterday also.
Well, yeah, I know that. Well, what I'm saying is the line of actual control is delineated on the map. There is no time that the Chinese have said that this line is not acceptable to us, therefore we are crossing it.
No, Dr. Swami, suddenly it seems the BJP is prepared to make many concessions
therefore, when they cross
on behalf of the Chinese.
So if
this
the Chinese
I
are
find
saying that
very
the line
surprising,
of actual
especially in the context of what Prime Minister Modi said before the elections. I want to ask you just one question in conclusion.
We will react if the Chinese came across that line and sat down. Then we will react.
And sat down for how many days? 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, 90 days, or they permanently fix their tent? I mean, what is your definition of coming across and sitting there, Dr. Swami?
I will tell you. Yeah, come on now.
Please tell me.
The moment this is pointed
Please tell me, Dr. Swami,
yeah,
what is your definition of coming
Okay, one at a time.
Is it 24 hours, 48 hours before you give them a parking ticket and decide to retaliate?
You are not a... All right, go on talking, I will listen.
Dr. Swami, how do you define a proper incursion? How do you define a casual incursion and a serious incursion?
In deference to your seniority, I listen to everything that you'll say.
Dr. Swami.
All right, then listen. Learn to listen. You had made an allegation. How long? I mean, you asked the question,
yes.
How long? I am saying the moment it is pointed out to them, they must leave. If they don't, then there has to be retaliation.
Okay, I'm going to leave it over there just now.
I've lost
Thank you very much. Manish Tiwari and Subramaniam Swami, you're drawing a red line on our broadcast. Let's just hope that red line stays and that red line is not conveniently adjusted when this incursion happens, because make no mistake, the Chinese are testing our resolve. They are checking the mettle of this government, and so far the government seems to be following a policy of continuation as opposed to a policy which would stare the Chinese in their face. That's what they promised. That's not what we've seen so far. We will keep track of this story. For lighting up center stage tonight with the arguments, gentlemen Manish Tiwari and Dr. Subramaniam Swami, for joining us on our broadcast. Thank you.